Thank you so much for inviting me. And I thought tonight I would tell you my story, then about what kind of member of Congress I will be, and then my views on Israel, including my public record on Israel. And then happy to answer any questions you may have. And I'll talk a little bit about my background. So like many folks, my parents decided to come to America to seek the American dream. And I was thinking, they could have picked beautiful Southern California or Florida. They picked Cleveland, Ohio. Right? And we lived in the basement of a person's house, starting out. We were poor, we did not speak English well, and it was cold. We would go to flea markets and sell gifts from Jury to make ends meet. My parents did that for several years, and then we opened one store in a shopping center selling gifts from Jury. They worked hard, saved some more money, opened one store in a shopping mall, and my brother and I would help watch that gift store. And then eventually they expanded to 6 stores. And so in my mind, my parents achieved the American dream. They went from being poor to a home, gave my brother and I an amazing education, and it's one of the reasons I joined the U.S. Air Force in active duty. I believe I can never give back to America, everything this amazing country has given to me and my family. One reason I choose to remain in the reserves, I am at LA Air Force Base as a lieutenant colonel, and it's one reason I'm in politics, to make sure that this dream remains open for people who want to work hard and succeed. After active duty Air Force, I served in private practice as an attorney. I then went to a financial services company. I was elected to Torrance City Council, the State Assembly, now the Senate. And let me sort of pose this question to you. Why do we love Henry Waxman? We love him not just because he was right on the issues, and because he was a fighter for issues. And I think many voters probably now think there's too much fighting in Congress. But we love Henry Waxman because he was effective. He was an effective state legislator in California. He was incredibly effective as a member of Congress. He passed numerous landmark bills that he helped craft on a bipartisan basis through multiple policy committees in his House, then in the Senate, signed by both Republican and Democratic presidents. That's why we love Henry Waxman, because he got things done. There are 17 candidates in this race. I have a legislative record. And with my record, what you will see is that I passed numerous pieces of legislation through both houses. I took on powerful interests on behalf of constituents and got bills signed by both Republican and Democratic governors. So in 2005, I was elected. I was made chair of assembly shortly afterwards. I'm sorry, chair of banking shortly afterwards. And then, this whole financial crisis hit. We had a mortgage meltdown that nearly collapsed our economy. So I authored a major subprime mortgage reform in California, designed to rein in the predatory lending that Wall Street was engaging in, designed to stop abusive practices. First time I tried it, I couldn't get it out of the legislature. Worked on it again. Second time I tried it, I got it through the legislature, vetoed by the governor. Third time I tried it, got it signed by a Republican governor, and then I was rewarded with being taken out as chair of banking. I also took on the indoor UV tanning industry. And if there's one thing I want you to remember tonight, I don't really care about if you vote for me now, I want you to remember this. Indoor UV tanning kills. The evidence is very clear. It causes melanoma. And the first time I tried it, failed. When I tried to ban it for people 18 and under. Second time I tried it, signed into law. And now the states of Vermont and Texas have replicated that law. I took on health insurance companies. We learned that health insurance companies were incentivizing their employees to drop people off the health insurance rolls through a process known as rescission. When I first heard about it, I thought, wow, that's immoral. Now it's illegal because of my law. And then I took on those who wanted to harm their children through the practice of gay conversion therapy. The evidence is very clear. You cannot convert anyone from being gay to straight. And if you try to do that, some of them will get very depressed, some will become suicidal, and then some will commit suicide. I authored that bill, got it through multiple committees, signed by the governor. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld it. It's now been introduced in 8 states, recently signed into law in New Jersey. So the other thing that a member of Congress does, in addition to legislation, is they do constituent casework. And I love doing that. I've had a passion for helping constituents. I live in the district, my kids go to school in the district, and I like to help people in the district. And so a few weeks ago, we learned that a woman lost her health insurance, and she needed emergency cancer surgery. We found out about it, we called her, we talked to her health insurance company. Within days, we restored her health insurance, and then she was able to get her surgery. Last year, I requested, fought for, and helped secure $2 million to sign Roosevelt Senators Museum of Tolerance to help them complete the Anne Frank exhibit. And because of my a passion for local community issues, I am honored to have been endorsed by LA City Council members Mike Bonnet, Bill Rosendahl, and Paul Koretz. So the kind of member of Congress I'll be is someone that goes up there and fights for the community, but also gets things done. And that's what I work on day in, day out, is to help constituents and help craft laws that benefit not just California, but all of America. And then let me conclude now by giving you my view on Israel. And it comes from, part of it is from my education. I majored in political science in college, and I had a focus on arms control and security studies. I'm a graduate of Air Command and Staff College, and recently a graduate of Air War College. And for my studies, it's very clear that the first priority of the federal government is America's national security. And our security is inextricably linked to the security of Israel. Israel is a profound and unique ally of the U.S. It is the only democracy in a very troubled region of the world, and America must do everything it can to defend her. I also believe Israel has a full right of self-defense to defend itself from terrorist attacks and those who seek to harm Israel. But the other view I have of Israel comes from my amazing trip with the Jewish Federation in 2007. And you know, before I went there, my wife and I weren't sure what to expect. We knew about Israel from sort of television images. And so when we got there at the airport, there was this big demonstration. We thought, oh, it's some security issue going on. So as we get closer, we realize it's a teacher's strike. No, it's the same the whole world over. So the first place they took us was to Jerusalem. We saw the wall. And then we went to see the church or Holy Sepulchre, incredibly important to Catholics. And then we went to see the Dome of the Rock, incredibly important to Muslims, all within walking distance. And it instantly became clear to me why there's been centuries of strife. But it was also very clear to me, it showed the promise of Israel, that you had people living there of different faiths, different communities, peacefully. Then they took us to Salon, actually near Salon, to this military outpost overlooking Gaza Strip. So we went on this tower to the second floor, and the IDF captain was explaining to us, you know, there's Gaza, Israel provides most of the power to Gaza, and then Hamas launches rockets over into Israel. It made no sense. And as he proceeded to talk, this younger IDF soldier comes up to him, and they have a discussion, then sort of a heated argument, and the younger soldier leaves. And I was aware at that time of metallic balloons in the sky that would act as early warning systems when rockets would come over into Israel. And after the briefing was over, we get on the bus, and I asked the tour guide, what was that discussion all about? And he said, you know, the younger soldier said to the older soldier, please take these people away from us, they're making us targets. And it was amazing to sort of understand what the people there were living through. They were going to school, they were shopping, they were buying groceries, all with this existential threat that a rocket could land and destroy their family. And then one of the last places we went to was Tel Aviv, beautiful city as you all know. But right before we went there, we stopped at this restaurant overlooking the water. And by the way, I had shawarma. I love shawarma. And so we had that, and afterwards we got on the bus again. And the guide said, you know, about a year and a half earlier, a woman walked in, had lunch, and then blew herself up, killed a lot of people, leveled the restaurant. And then they rebuilt it, and people go in there and have lunch and have dinner. And the resiliency that I saw was amazing. But I came away from that trip understanding the existential nature of the people living in Israel and why it's so important that America protect her. And that's why, as a member of Congress, I will fight for and support America's $30 billion 10-year commitment for Israel's security. I will fight for and support increased funding to the Iron Dome missile system, including systems such as Arrow 3 and David Sling. I will also fight for and support increased U.S.-Israeli partnerships, including the U.S.-Israeli Partnership Act 2013. I will do everything I can to avoid the BDS movement, and I will do whatever I can to help the two-state solution. I do believe Secretary Kerry's comments recently are offensive. I don't think his apology actually goes far enough. I think he should simply apologize for using the term that he used. With that, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much. I have one question for you quickly, then we're going to open it up. But I'm curious, as someone who's really, in a lot of ways, lived the American dream, What are your views on immigration reform?
Oh, I think we absolutely need comprehensive immigration reform. And, you know, it was not an easy decision for me to run for Congress. I was running for re-election to Senate at that time. I know opponent, I would have had 4 years, and then I was going to run statewide. And I gave all that up. And I gave it up because there were just some things that I realized that we needed far more national attention on, and we needed a national solution. Immigration reform is one of them. So California has done amazing things. I'm honored to have championed and voted for the DREAM Act, signed into law. I voted for the Trust Act, signed into law. And then last year on my committee, we passed the bill that allows dreamers to become lawyers. But I also realized that California is just one state. To really get this right, we need comprehensive immigration reform. We need it done at the national level. Not only will it jumpstart the economy, it is the humane thing to do. And so that is one reason I'm running for Congress. And let me just add one more thing. The other reason I'm running is because of climate change. I believe that's an existential issue for humanity. And it's clear to me that we did a lot of things in California. I'm honored to be a co-author of AB 32 to help reduce greenhouse gases. Last year, as a result of a Senate bill I authored, $3 million went to communities in Los Angeles and Hermosa Beach and organizations such as Heal the Bay to deal with climate change adaptation. But again, California is one state. And we can do everything we can. We can go dark tomorrow and use no energy, and the world will keep heating up. What we need is America to do what California has done, and we need the world to do what America will do. And that's what we need to do. But we want our children, our grandchildren to live in an environment that is at least that's the same or better than ours.
Thank you. We have a question back there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I was just wondering if I could follow up. It's clear that
it's clear you're passionate about reforming immigration. I was wondering if you could provide some greater specifics as to how you might attack that. So you're leading the committee, and you're going to outline a plan somewhere, something between amnesty and deportation. Tell us a little bit about your plan.
Well, first I support the Senate's plan that the Senate passed and is now in the House. I commend you to read Congressman Waxman's book. It's called The Waxman Report. It's very well written, very interesting, and he talks about how he worked on a bipartisan basis with his colleagues. And he actually said that in every major piece of legislation he crafted, it had bipartisan support. And also, it takes time. The Ryan White AIDS Act that was signed into law took 9 years. He worked on it for 9 years. But he was able to do that by working day in and day out with colleagues on both sides of the aisle. And that's what you need. People in Congress are willing to, not yell and scream, but just work every day on behalf of constituents, and then to get legislation passed.
A question back there.
Hi, I'm Yael. I'm an Israeli entrepreneur visiting LA for the next 8 days. I would like to ask you, what if Israel, the peace talks in Israel would stop, once again, just because of, for example, the settlements, and Israel will be badly criticized because of this? What would be your position, your movement, what would you do?
About settlements. Is that?
I think the question is about the peace talks right now and your position on the peace talks and what would happen if the talks were to fail.
Well, let me first say that you cannot negotiate with a terrorist organization. Hamas is a terrorist organization. And when Fatah aligns with Hamas, you're now dealing with a government, half of which is a terrorist organization. And I just don't see how we're going to achieve peace that way until Hamas takes out of its charter that it wants to destroy Israel, which is not going to be able to negotiate with a partner like that. So if the peace talks fail, they fail because of that is a main reason it would fail. I hope that it doesn't come to that end, but until Hamas changes its ways, or until there's something that disaligns them from the peace talks, I don't see any way for Israel to negotiate with a terrorist organization that wants to destroy Israel. That's my view of what the current state is.
All right, sorry, we're going to move on to our next question. We have time for one more question. Over here.
What do you believe the federal government can and should do to affect the affordable housing crisis in cities like Los Angeles?
That's a great question. I've always been a supporter of affordable housing. In the Assembly, I championed and voted for Prop 1C that provided funds for affordable housing. It is a huge problem. You know, one way is just straight additional funding to help affordable housing. Another is to try to, you know, build transit centers closer to housing and not have so much sprawl. You can, you know, it's interesting. I was on a local city council. There's always, right, this fight between sprawl and density. But there's some ways you can have more affordable housing if you get higher density in certain areas near transit centers, because then cities and developers can recoup some of that cost. A lot of it is locally based, and a lot of it just has to do with state funding.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Senator.